Hello, guys. Welcome to the Expanded Women Podcast, where I talk about all things spiritual, personal, and business development. Today, I wanted to talk about something that's been coming up for me a lot lately. And there's this concept in my world of somatics, I guess, where we talk a lot about our desires and focusing on the goal and the outcome rather than focusing on what doesn't feel good. And I think part of it is my takeaway from the whole somatic program I've taken and what's come up for me a lot in my life, and a lot of things that I've noticed about our culture and our society. And it's that we always focus on what's going wrong and what needs to be fixed and how we can dig into our healing. And I just feel like it's so wrong. I started saying this in yoga. I teach yoga, and I started saying this because I noticed that this is something that yoga teachers say all the time. It's do a little body scan and notice any areas of your body that you're holding tension. And while this is such like a simple, offhanded remark that everybody makes, it just it ties into these subtle messages that we are telling ourselves all the time to look for what's wrong instead of looking for what's good. And so when I teach yoga, I don't tell people to look for tension in their bodies. I tell people to look for something that feels really good in their body. And for a lot of us, this is so foreign, and it's like we don't even know how to do it. So in somatics, in the modality that I teach, I'll just give a quick explanation of kind of how we titrate back and forth throughout a session. So a healthy nervous system is capable of titrating from activation back to a parasympathetic state. And so what this means is it can go up and down easily. It doesn't get stuck in one or the other, because getting stuck is not good. And a lot of us who run anxiety programming are stuck in that activation. And so during session, we teach people that if something feels too intense, we can start to move away from it until we find somewhere in our bodies that feels safer. Something that's really, 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 really common when we work with somatics is for us to start session. And this is something actually that, was taught to me, but I personally think that if you spend enough time grounding somebody in the beginning of session, that this shouldn't happen. But this happens all the time, where when people start to turn inwards, is some sort of uncomfortable feeling, sensation, or activation will start to present itself. And that's because, for one, most of us are running high stress, high anxiety patterning. That seems to be the majority of the population in terms of, for me anyways, that's what I've experienced with my clients and the people that have been in my life. And with that being said, when I do my healing sessions, I spend so much time getting my client grounded into safety that when we start to look inwards, majority of the time, that's not the first thing that comes up. And this is kind of like where I'm going with the conversation, is that I am a firm believer in the fact that if we want to create long-lasting healing, we have to feel safe and grounded to do so. And so that's why I spend so much time at the beginning of my sessions getting people into what we call a blue. So in the somatic world, we call a blue the sensations and the feelings and all that stuff that feel good. And we color red the stuff that feels edgy. And when I first took my training and I received the healing sessions, my mentor actually kept me in the blues like a whole bunch. And I really, really deeply realized at that time that that was the healing for me. For so long, I had spent so much time kind of digging my heels in, reading self-help books, looking at what was wrong with me, trying to figure out how I could fix it. And all of a sudden, this somatic practice comes along where this woman is teaching me how to feel good. And as somebody who grew up with high anxiety and all kinds of issues like that, I didn't know how to feel good in my body. Every time I looked inwards, there was some sort of activation. And my mentor really brought me deep into safety and helped me experience true joy and peace like I had never experienced before. And there's a post I made about this on Instagram lately where I talked about how I struggled to kind of describe and market this healing for other people, because I know that a lot of people are like me and they just don't even know what true peace and joy actually feels like. So for that to be like a tangible goal for them to want, it's just not realistic, because they don't even know it exists, if that makes sense. So anyways, I'm just kind of going off on a tangent here, but there's been a lot coming up for me in terms of, well, we're on the tail end. We just started Sagittarius season. And so I've been connecting a lot more with astrology and noticing, what's coming up for me in the seasons of astrology and whatnot. And Scorpio is shadow season. And I'm not going to name names or anything, but I have this app on my phone. It's this healing app, and I love it. It's super great, and I think it's awesome. But I'm starting to realize some things about it that are lacking, I think, for me. And I'll just get into it a little bit. And it's the whole shadow side. And so if you know anything about astrology, Scorpio is shadow season. And so I took this as like, okay, this is a time to dig into my shadows. And there's this part of this app where we are supposed to like kind of take inventory of all the shameful things in our lives and then work through them one by one and work on integrating that part back into ourselves. And while I think that integration is a beautiful thing, I'm working on this course, and there was like this shame reclamation meditation, and it made me realize she was so gentle with the whole shame thing, and it made me realize how fucked up it is to relive all those shameful moments in our lives in order to work through them. And one of the best part about somatic work is that we don't actually have to go into the situation that traumatized us. We can just work with the energy and the emotions that we're feeling that come up instead of re-traumatizing ourselves, which is, I feel like, going through all of the shameful things I've done in my life doesn't feel productive to me. And I noticed myself avoiding this practice and dreading it. And maybe some of you might think like, oh, she's being avoidant. But fuck that, man. It just doesn't feel good inside my body to do an inventory of all the things I'm shameful of and work through them one by one. Like, no. Absolutely not. There's a reason why I've been avoiding it. It's because it's not resonating with me. And I just was sitting down after I did this shame reclamation meditation from this woman named Lindsay Means. She's super awesome. I'll drop her Instagram and her podcast in the show notes because I'm just kind of diving into her community, her Empress Sanctuary, and I'm absolutely loving it. I think she's such a cool person. But I was sitting down doing her shame reclamation meditation, and a lot of stuff was coming up for me, like in terms of how I need to deal with shame. And as I'm shaping and evolving in my business and kind of coming up with my own unique methodology, I guess you could say. And this is, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, something that's been coming up a lot for me lately is like this working towards our desires instead of working on what's not right. So focusing on what we want and what's right instead of focusing on the shit all the time. Because here's the thing. Life is fucking hard enough as it is. Why are we making it harder by treating ourselves like we are some sort of project that needs to be fixed or healed or whatever? You know, like stressors come up on their own, triggers come up on their own, things come up on their own. We don't need to go digging through our shit, through our graveyard. What if we just focused on what we are working towards and see what comes up in resistance to that as it arises? Our lives and our experiences are always a mirror of what's going on inside. And so the things that trigger us in our life, I think, are there to show us a part of us that needs to be healed. So what if we just started allowing things that needed to be healed to come up on their own instead of looking for things to be fixed? And I think that a lot of the time, you know, especially when it comes to money, and I've been guilty of this too, is thinking that there's something wrong with us that needs to be fixed in order for us to make money. And that's just not true. It just really isn't. I don't believe that. There's nothing wrong with us. We don't have blocks per se. You know, yes, of course, there's limiting beliefs and there's things that hold us back. We have hundreds and thousands of limiting negative belief systems, okay? We're never going to be able to dig into all of those at once and just be this like healed version of ourselves. And we don't need to heal all of our negative beliefs around money to actually make money. Chances are, if there's something that you're working towards, there's probably a common theme in your life that's coming up that needs to be healed. So I'll just tell you guys kind of what's been coming up for me lately and what I've been working through. And I'm putting together some mini courses and stuff for my membership right now. And I was really digging into manifestation and what we need to do in order to connect with our manifestations. And so for me, when it comes to money, I sat down and I thought about like, what is the main thing that I need, that I think that money is going to give me? And for me, that was safety. And so that really, just that one thing is highlighting all these other parts of my life. And it's bringing so much awareness to me in the ways that I am avoiding safety in my life. And I think that this is such a huge, valuable lesson for everybody out there. If you are calling something in, and this is the whole goal of the podcast, right? Is like talking about working towards something that we want instead of focusing and turning back, kind of is how I see it. Turning back and focusing on our past and all the things that we want to heal and fix from our past. I'm focusing on something that I want, and I want to create more financial abundance for myself. So what is the feeling I want to connect with? Safety. So how can I start to find more safety in my life? And for me, this one was really, really hard because if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I've been talking a little bit late about how dysregulated I've been feeling lately. I've been experienced a lot of growth and expansion in the last few months, and I'm finding my nervous system has been falling back into old patterns. And I've been noticing my safety mechanism is to work my ass off and get lost in the busyness of doing. And it's my default is to step into my masculine. I've spent so many years in the trades, and it's so ingrained into me from my upbringing, and basically just the whole blue collar society is like, just work your ass off until you get what you want. And to me, like, I've told my partner, like, I have to be so careful about how much I'm doing, because the more I do, the less creative I am. And being creative is so important in my business. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. The whole point was looking for safety felt really, really hard for me because I've been feeling so dysregulated. I just don't feel safe at all. And I talked about this in one of my recent posts about how when I take a deep breath, it helps me connect with those blues that I experienced in some of my somatic sessions. And so I noticed that taking those little breaths were the only little micro moments that I truly felt safe. I was having trouble feeling safe in my body, having trouble, like I've been trying to, point out all the little things in my life that are safe, but it hasn't felt truly congruent because I don't feel safe in my body. But when I do feel safe is when I'm taking those really like delicious breaths. And so what I started doing is taking those little breaths like constantly all the time and consciously bringing my awareness to how safe I feel in those little micro moments. And the more I would take those little breaths, the more that safety would start to spread throughout my day to the point where I was feeling more of a sense of safety all the time. And so I really started noticing all of the little things that I've been doing in my life to subconsciously keep myself where I was, instead of allowing for the integration, allowing for me to find safety in this new level of growth. So I'm kind of like segueing, I guess. I'm basically there's not one topic here. I'm catching you guys all up on everything that's been going on for me and all the thoughts that I've been having and all the things I've been feeling lately. So I'm sorry if that feels like a little bit all over the place, because this is just like a collection of all my thoughts and feelings. So, yeah. Anyways, I've really been noticing, I've been doing this 40-day Kundalini challenge, and one of the things that the teacher said has really been resonating with me, and it's been showing up a lot for me in different areas of my life too. I've been hearing it in different areas, and it's like, what is the story that you are telling yourself? And for me, subconscious belief systems and old belief patterns is such a buzzword. And for me, what resonates more than that are the words, what is the story that you're telling yourself? Because to me, that's the same thing. A belief system is basically a story that I tell myself. And so how can we notice the stories that we tell ourselves in certain situations, and how can we rewrite them? Because in my opinion, sometimes all it takes is for something to come up and to be known in that moment, for it to be released. But in my opinion, most of the time, a lot of our belief systems are so ingrained in us that it takes some work to rewrite them. So I've been really noticing, as I've brought my awareness to the fact that I want to call more safety into my life, because this is how we connect with our manifestations is by experiencing the emotion that the manifestation would bring to us when we receive it. And so that's why I'm talking about all of the stuff that's been coming up for me lately, because I'm noticing how unsafe I feel in all of the little ways and the habits that I do to keep myself in this space of not feeling safe, because feeling safe actually doesn't feel comfortable to me. And I know it sounds so weird because feeling unsafe is not comfy, but it's what my normal is. My normal is to feel uncomfortable. My normal is to feel stressed and chaotic. And when I first took my somatic training, I brought myself to this place of new peace and all that. And for a long time, I was experiencing a new level of peace and calm in my life. And it wasn't until I kind of started experiencing this up level in my business and my life that these old patternings of the lack of safety started to come back. And because that's like my body's most known go-to is to feel unsafe, I started to notice how I would avoid doing things that I knew were going to be good for me and make me feel good. So like if I was working at the yoga studio and instead of staying for a yin class, I'd be like, ugh, I don't want to do that because I just feel like I don't have the patience to sit through that yin class, even though that's exactly what my body needed. And, I love being in nature, but why is it so hard for me to go outside and take a walk every day? Is that my nervous system trying to subconsciously stay again where it's at? And, once we start to realize all these little things, it's like, I see what you're doing, nervous system. And no, I'm not going to stay stuck where I am. Once we start to bring that awareness to all these little things, it's like, oh my God, my whole life is like opened up. I'm just noticing so many little things, and it doesn't feel like work. So in like a very long-winded way, I guess what I'm trying to say is I decided that I wanted to work towards something, and these are the things that have been coming up for me along the way. And something else that I wanted to talk about that really kind of cemented in this whole concept of working towards what we truly want instead of working on healing what's wrong is I was listening to this podcast again by Lindsay Means, and it was about the God wound and the mother wound and the father wound and all this stuff, and how she talks about how she was attached to the word wound and that feeling and that wanting of going and fixing that instead of focusing on what she actually wanted and what she said was God union. And that just made so much sense to me. It's like, yeah, like we have all this stuff to heal, but what do we really want? We're searching for the feeling of being one with God and with being in touch with our feminine side and in touch with our masculine side and strengthening that divine feminine, strengthening that divine masculine. And that feels so much better to me than healing the father wound or healing the God wound. Like even just the energy of those words is such a lower vibration than God union, divine masculine, divine feminine. That feels so much better to me. And so that's really just kind of cemented in, as I'm putting together my expanded woman membership right now. And I have kind of a structure of what I want to have in there to start it out. And this is just kind of really giving me this new direction and really cementing in the fact that I want us to work towards what it is we fucking want instead of trying to heal and dig our heels in and deal with all that nitty-gritty shit, because all that shit comes up along the way to be felt when it's ready to be felt. We don't need to go looking for it, right? Does that make sense? Am I just rambling and jambling on here? Let me know if this episode resonates with you. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. I want to hear what your thoughts are. I want to hear if this episode resonated with you or not. I just really have been feeling called to share what's on my heart, and I've really just been looking for exactly what it is that I have to offer to the world, and I feel like this is a piece of it. So let me know what you think. So excited to hear from you, and I hope you have an amazing day.